Hi there, and welcome to Wade's Workshop. As the title suggests, in this episode we're going to be cleaning out my 3-jaw chuck. Now, I've been machining a bit of cast iron lately, and I can feel a bit of grittiness and what have you when I'm turning the chuck key on the 3-jaw chuck. So I'm going to be stripping it down into its individual components, giving it a really good clean out, lubricating it and putting it all back together. Bit of routine maintenance, as it were. I'll just give it a rough clean first, get the worst of the swarf off it. I use a 16mm spanner on the jaw for my particular chuck. I don't, let's put it this way, I wouldn't use the chuck key in the hole to undo the 3 nuts on the back. These are for doing up and undoing the chuck only. So probably the better method is put a spanner on the jaw and get the right end of the spanner, and I'll just loosen off the 3 nuts on the back. Here we are. So next I'll remove the 3 jaws, making sure we don't drop them on the bed of the lathe. There we are, so 3 jaws removed. Now, on larger lathes, where there could be a danger of you dropping the chuck on the bed, probably recommend a piece of board, something like that. You keep on the bed of the lathe, piece of plastic sheet or wooden board, something like that, that you can keep on the bed so that should you inadvertently drop the chuck off, it's not going to dent the bedways of your lathe. But as this lathe has such a small chuck, and through experience I know it doesn't drop off particularly, I'll remove the 3 nuts. I'm just holding the chuck back against the headstock to make sure it doesn't physically drop off. And that's 2. Remove the last one and the little washer. Very thin little washers on the back of here as they're supplied. I should get myself some decent 8mm washers for the back of here. I'll write that down in my little notebook after this bit of video. So yeah, the little washer seems to catch. There it goes. And I can remove the chuck. And before I lose it altogether, I'll just retrieve the little washer. So I got 3 washers and 3 nuts. Yeah, the little ones that are supplied are very thin and they tend to distort and grab in the threads. I'll get myself some decent 8mm washers. Might even make some little brass ones perhaps. That could be a little project. So I'll just clean the worst of the swarf off the back, just to stop any further dirt going in there that might be in there already. I'm going to undo the 3 screws that hold on the little back plate here first. I actually could do with a compressor for this sort of work so I could blow the swarf off, but I'm working on getting hold of one. It's low on my priority list, but should one turn up for the right price, that'll be a new little addition to the workshop. And it'll only be a little tiny one because I don't want to take up half of my workshop space with a compressor, as it were. So there's one. Let's take out these little screws. They look like about M4, they might be M3, M4 I guess. And we'll place those to one side. There we are, and I should be able to just lift out the back plate like so. Actually looks fairly clean in there. Some dirt around, but anyway. So the next step, and I can see already, I don't know whether it's visible, that there is aluminium swarf in the bottom of there. So that's not going to help matters, so we're going to give it all a good clean out anyway. So the next step is going to be to remove the 3 tightening screws. Basically they're a one piece that pass through this gear, and they've got a register on the end which slides into the central part of the the chuck. So to do that, again, we're going to need an appropriately sized screwdriver. That's lovely. And just remove the 3 little retaining pins. So these pins go right through, and let me just see if I can show you. They go through and sit in this recess in the side which stops them being able to come out. So that's it, they're out. So that's that one. I mean, you could keep these in order, but it's not particularly important to, you know, match them back up into the same holes. I'm sure it wasn't done like that when they were originally manufactured. But yeah, I mean, I've done this operation several times and had no problems with swapping them all about. So that's the 3 retainers. So the next thing to do is to remove the gear itself. Now I find that if you turn it upside down and give it a tap, it pops out. Now you can see the amount of absolute dirt and muck I've got in there. Let's give you a close-up of this. Yeah, as you can see, it's absolutely full of debris, and there's not much sign of lubrication left in there. But yeah, we're going to have to give this a good clean out, I think. Just get rid of the worst of the debris with my fluffy brush, the famous fluffy brush. But you know, most people would throw them away at this stage, but actually for this job it's probably perfect. So yeah, just getting rid of the worst of it on the main body itself. As you can see, my bench already is covered in it. Now, it would be nice to have a parts cleaner here, an ultrasonic one, something like that, and drop the lot in it, but I haven't got that luxury. So I'm just giving it an inspection while I'm doing it, seeing if I can see anything nasty. Not particularly. A few little raggedy edges around the scroll. I may attack those with a little needle file. I'm going to be very gentle with them if I do that. And again, I'll clean every individual component so that it's spotless and completely free of dirt. Put a nice clean cloth down, and then we'll look at lubricating it and reassembling it. I'm in the process of taking down my old shed that's out there, which is full of junk going back years and years. You couldn't even walk through the door. And in the back on the floor I found this rusty old tin of brake and clutch cleaner. But as it happens, it was fairly full and it's still got some in. So we'll use that up before we use our nice new tin, I think. So we're giving these all a good clean. There is no end of debris coming off this stuff. Would normally be a bit more sparing with this stuff, and you know, because the normal stuff, it's about £5 or £6 of tin. It does a fair bit of work, but as it's a sort of freebie, as it were, I don't mind if I'm using a fair whack of it. The only trouble is, I think I'm going to have to open the door of the shed, because I'm going to be high as a kite if I carry on at this rate. So excuse me while I open the shed door. So we're ready to reassemble now, and I believe that the sort of correct lubrication that you'd use inside for the scroll and what have you would be a lithium, I think it's molybdenum type grease, the sort of grey thick pasty stuff that they use in CB joints, that sort of thing. I haven't got any of that. I do have a tin of white lithium grease, and this stuff does dry fairly thick once the propellant has gone out of it. So that's what I'm going to be using. But if you've got, you know, if you ever change a CV boot and things like that on vehicles, you always have a little pouch of this grey grease, and typically you always have some left over, except for today when I haven't got any left over, or a little bit left over. So I'm going to have to make do with what I've got. But the sort of typical lithium molybdenum, I think the word is, grease would be the ideal thing. So I'm just going to give a little spray in there on either side for the scroll, because this side is the side that's highly likely to flick out of the chuck as the chuck is revolving. So I'm just going to drop and place that into position again, and it should just pop into the bottom there. There we are, and as you can see, it's revolving freely. And now I'm going to spray the individual teeth. So there we are. We pretty much covered all the teeth in there. So next step, I'm going to put a little bit on each of these. That's it. And pop these back into place. Again, got a little bit of spare lying around. Screw back in with the appropriate screwdriver the 3 retaining screws. We'll just pop the chuck key in there to make sure that nothing's bound up. Absolutely fine. Right to the next one. In she goes. In fact, there should be enough grease in that groove that I won't need to lubricate this screw. There we go. You don't want to overfill this with grease. If it's you know, packed right up, you're going to find that when your chuck's running at high speed, it's going to be spitting grease all over you. So nice thick grease, just a coating on everything. I mean, the sort of anti-fling chain grease would do the job, but as I say, the CV joint grease is the ideal stuff, or so I'm led to believe. But as it stands at the moment, I couldn't get hold of any. So, that's the basic assembly back together. Give it a bit of a spin. No problems. And again, this is a fixed part. I'm just wiping off any excess off my fingers and what have you, just to give this a bit of a coating. And we'll pop that into place, line up the 3 screws, and again refit the 3 screws one at a time. Obviously you don't want to Loctite these in or anything like that. I don't think I've ever seen them come out. Obviously for maintenance you don't want to Loctite them in, with them being small screws. They could come back out, or you know, should when next time you want to take them out, you're looking at a nightmare. So just do them up loosely with a small screwdriver. So 1. Get in the groove. 2 and 3. We'll just check its operation again. That's sweet. Give it a good wipe down again. And that's ready to refit. So before we fit it back up, give it all a good clean. Good opportunity to do this while it's while you haven't got a chuck on there. Clean out behind as well. Now, not strictly necessarily this, I just give it a smear of WD. I don't know how long it's going to be before the next time I take the chuck off, and as there is an air gap in there in various places, I don't want to get any rust. Back on with my chuck. As you can see, I'm holding the chuck all the time here because I don't want to drop it on the bed. And as we said, if you have a larger lathe with a larger chuck, there could be a likelihood as you pull it off, you know, just dropping it, or slight lapse of concentration, and you've got a dent in your bed. So that's one nut on. I know I can't fold now. And on with the second one. Just going finger tight with these for the moment. Lots of fingers. gap is very narrow in the back of here to fit the nuts, and they're not full thickness nuts, but there we are. I'll just put these on so tight. Again, on larger lathes where you can put it in back gear and what have you, you can actually virtually lock the chuck against the gears, and you wouldn't need to hold the chuck, so to speak. But there we are. So now, before I can tighten it up, I need to put the jaws back in. I'll give the jaws a thorough cleaning as well. They'll have a little smear of oil on them, and I may just dribble a little bit of oil in through the little oiler here before we do it. So to put the jaws back in, I think I've actually shown this before. Slot number 1, 2 and 3. So slot number 1, jaw number 1. Bring the scroll round. You'll see the outside edge of the worm in the scroll coming round into view into the window. Drop it back out of the window. Place the jaw in position and then do it up. And I have put a few drops of oil on the jaw. So again, there's the scroll worm starting. Drop it back out of the window, in with the jaw, half a turn, make sure it's captive. Bring the next jaw round to the top. Exactly the same, keep turning until you see the worm in the window, back out the way, hold down, half a turn, make sure it's captive. Round to number 3, exactly the same procedure. There's the start of the scroll, wind it back, in with the jaw and turn. And double check yourself, put all the jaws to the centre. Let me just zoom you out on that. And there we are, they all match up perfectly. So in a nutshell, that is a nice clean serviced 3-jaw chuck. Now there are lots of other things I could do to it, go around it, check burrs, stone edges. I did give it a rough check over when I had all the individual components and removed any burrs or sharp edges. But yeah, I find this chuck operates absolutely superbly as long as I give it a good clean out every now and again. And I particularly wanted to do it in this circumstance because I'd been machining a bit of cast and the dust gets everywhere when you're doing cast. I cleaned all the lathe down, but I didn't clean the chuck. But as you can see, there was a fair amount of aluminium inside the chuck. I wouldn't have thought it was going to create a great deal of damage being aluminium with all the cast and hardened parts in this chuck. But again, it makes it notchy and just awkward to use. And, you know, you want to keep it nice and clean in there. So there we are. That's a bit of routine maintenance on a 3-jaw chuck. Well, I do hope you found this demonstration useful. It's in response to a viewer's question on how you strip it down, clean it out and what have you. So I hope this answers the question. On a further note, a couple of videos ago, I think it was Shed Talk 8, I mentioned that I was up to, I think, 700 subscribers. Thank you, guys. And that the goal, should we call it, was to be at 750 by the end of the month. You know, that was a sort of little mini target. Anyway, thanks so much to you guys and all the new subscribers. We're now on the 30th of August. And we're on 765, I believe it is. So we're well on track for that magic 1,000. So thanks very much to everybody. Welcome to everybody new who subscribed. And thanks to everybody for watching. I've been Adrian. Bye now.